The snow came early to Hinterkaifeck that winter. By late March of 1922, the farmstead sat isolated in a gray-white silence, a lonely cluster of buildings on the edge of the Bavarian forest. The nearest neighbor was a mile away. The nearest town, Ingolstadt, was several hours by horse or foot. It was the kind of place where a man could disappear and no one would notice for days. But on the night of March 31st, 6 people did not disappear. They were extinguished, and the silence that followed has never been broken. The Hinterkaifeck murders are among the most haunting unsolved crimes in German history. No one was ever convicted. No motive was ever proven. The case remains open, a cold file in a dusty archive, but the whispers around it have never stopped. This is the story of a crime that defied explanation, a mystery that has outlived every witness, and a farmhouse that became a tomb. The farm was home to the Gruber family. Andreas Gruber, 63, was the patriarch, a stern man who worked the land with his wife Cäzilia, 72. Their widowed daughter, Viktoria Gabriel, 35, lived with them, along with her 2 children, Cäzilia, age 7, and Joseph, age 2. The 6th victim was the maid, Maria Baumgartner, 44, who had arrived only the day before. She had come to replace the previous maid, who had quit weeks earlier, claiming the farm was haunted. She said she heard footsteps in the attic and saw a face at the window. No one believed her. She left anyway. In the days before the murders, neighbors reported strange occurrences. Andreas told a local that someone had been walking in the attic. He found footprints in the snow leading from the forest to the house, but none leading away. A set of unfamiliar newspapers was discovered in the barn. The family dog, usually aggressive, had gone silent. And on the evening of March 31st, a neighbor saw smoke rising from the chimney. He assumed all was well. It was the last normal sighting of the Hinterkaifeck family. The crime was discovered on April 4, 1922, 4 days after the murders. A postman named Michael Kopp noticed the mail piling up. He alerted the mayor of the nearby village of Waykirchen. A group of men walked to the farm through the slush and fog. The barn door was open. The cow was lowing, hungry and unmilked. The house was quiet. They entered the living room and found Andreas Gruber, dead, his skull crushed by a mattock, a farming tool used for breaking soil. Cäzilia lay nearby, also bludgeoned. The children were in their beds, killed with the same brutal efficiency. Viktoria was found in her room. Maria Baumgartner, the maid who had been there less than 24 hours, was found in the barn, killed with the same weapon. The scene was methodical. There were no signs of forced entry. The killer had been let in, or was already inside. The family was killed in separate rooms, suggesting the murderer moved deliberately from one victim to the next. The mattock was found at the scene, wiped clean. A piece of a newspaper was used to cover a wound, perhaps an attempt at respect, or a strange ritual. The family's money was untouched. The livestock was unharmed. Nothing was stolen. The motive was not robbery. The investigation began immediately, led by local police and later by the Munich Criminal Police. The farm was sealed off. Every neighbor, friend, and relative was questioned. The initial theory was a feud or a personal vendetta. Andreas had a reputation for being difficult. He had argued with a neighbor named Lorenz Schlittenbauer over a boundary dispute. Schlittenbauer had threatened him. But Schlittenbauer had an alibi, and no evidence tied him to the scene. Other suspects emerged: a wandering vagrant, a disgruntled former employee, a secret lover of Viktoria's. None stuck. The most persistent theory involved incest. Viktoria had given birth to a child years earlier, and rumors suggested the father was her own father, Andreas. The child died young. Some believed that a man named Karl Gabriel, Viktoria's deceased husband, had not died in World War I as reported, but had returned in secret, discovered the incest, and killed the family in a rage. But no evidence of Karl's survival was ever found. He remained a ghost in a case full of ghosts. The investigation dragged on for years. Over 100 suspects were interviewed. The mattock was traced to a local blacksmith, but it was a common tool. The newspapers found in the barn were from Munich, but no one could say who left them. The footprints in the snow were photographed, but the snow melted before they could be cast. The case file grew thick with dead ends. In 1923, the farm was demolished. The land was plowed under. The state wanted to erase the memory, but the memory refused to die. In the 1930s, the case was reopened by the Nazi regime, which saw it as a chance to demonstrate forensic science. They brought in new experts, including the infamous Dr. Johann Schober, who claimed to have psychic abilities. Schober conducted a séance at the site. He claimed the killer was a man named Anton Geyer, a local woodcutter who had been questioned but released. Geyer was arrested, interrogated for days, and eventually released again. No evidence. The case went cold once more. After World War II, the file was moved to the Bavarian State Archives. It was studied by criminologists, journalists, and amateur sleuths. In the 1950s, a retired police officer named Ludwig Eder published a book suggesting the killer was Lorenz Schlittenbauer, the neighbor. He argued that Schlittenbauer had a motive, a temper, and no solid alibi. But Schlittenbauer had died in 1940, and the accusation was based on circumstantial reasoning, not proof. The theory gained followers but no conviction. In the 1980s, a new suspect emerged, a man named Joseph Bartel, a traveling salesman who had been in the area at the time. He had a criminal record for theft and violence. He was questioned in the 1920s but released. His descendants denied any involvement. The case was reopened briefly, but the statute of limitations had long expired. The only thing left was the archive and the speculation. The Hinterkaifeck murders have inspired countless documentaries, books, and even a feature film. The farmhouse was rebuilt as a replica for tourists. The site is marked by a small memorial stone. Every year, true crime enthusiasts make the pilgrimage to the remote field where the buildings once stood. They walk the same path the killer walked, through the same forest, past the same frozen creek. They look for answers in the fog. They find only silence. What makes Hinterkaifeck so haunting is not the violence, but the emptiness around it. There is no confession, no clear motive, no narrative that satisfies. The killer left no signature, no message, no logic. The family was poor. The farm was remote. The crime was personal, but the person remains unknown. The only certainty is that 6 people died in a single night, and the world moved on without them. The case remains open in the Bavarian police records. It is officially classified as an unsolved murder. There is no statute of limitations for murder in Germany, so technically the case could be reopened tomorrow if new evidence emerged. But after 100 years, the evidence has turned to dust. The witnesses are dead. The farm is gone. The snow has melted 100 times. And yet, the story endures. It endures because it is a mirror. It reflects our fear of the isolated, the unknown, the moment when the familiar becomes the terrible. It reminds us that evil does not need a reason. It can walk through an unlocked door, sit in the attic, wait in the dark, and leave no trace but the bodies and the silence. The Hinterkaifeck murders are a cold case in every sense. Cold as the March snow. Cold as the iron of the mattock. Cold as the years that have passed without justice. The farm is gone, but the question remains. Who walked into that house on the last night of March 1922, and why? The answer, if it exists, is buried somewhere in the Bavarian earth, beneath the fog, beneath the forest, beneath the weight of a century of unanswered prayers.